All right, in this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, excited to be talking to an individual set to compete at Bellator 290, and that goes down on February the 4th. A very compelling light heavyweight clash as Grant Neal and Karl Albrektsson get out there into the cage to test skills, and good having Karl back on the show to talk a bit about that. How's your day going so far, Karl?
It's going good. Been resting today, got some physical therapy, and now my kids are playing with their cousins there outside, so it's good. It's been a good day.
Oh, that's fun, man. Are they starting to, like, are they around an age where they're kind of, like, aware of what you do in a comprehensive way, or maybe not so much? Like, are they kind of on the younger side? Like, how much do they know of, what dad does professionally?
Mine are really young. The oldest one is 1.5 years old. Her cousins kind of know what I do. They're 5 and 6, but they don't really understand that it's a sport yet, and so we don't let them watch that much. They think I go around and wrestle something like that.
Yeah, no, that's fun though, and everything, and yeah, I mean, how much has that like reshaped your motivation, if at all, just being like a quote unquote fighting father? Like, has being a dad like altered your perceptions of how you pursue this MMA career at all and changed it in any kind of way, or maybe not so much?
Definitely. It's made, like, now you put bread on the table. Now it's like it's a higher demand on yourself. So before it was it can go this, it can go that, but now I really need to perform at my best, because now I need food on the table, clothes in the back, a roof over their heads. So it kind of, everything got a little bit more serious.
Yeah, for sure, and that's an interesting proposition considering how successful you've historically been even before that. And I have a lot I want to talk about this upcoming fight, but I feel like I'd also, be remiss if I didn't briefly just touch on the last one and everything like that. Like, what lessons are learned from that kind of thing? Like, that's like a classic adage in MMA, I suppose, like the whole like learn from the loss kind of dynamic. Like, what did you take away from that Bellator 285 fight, I suppose?
Dylan, sometimes everything in life just decides to happen at once. We had a lot of home stuff, and I was very stressed, and I wasn't myself in there. It was not a skill thing. It was like a mental thing for me, I believe. So after the fight, hats off to Karl Moore. He's a great fighter. He did it very well, very tough. But I know in my head that this is a fight I should win if I'm myself. And so after the fight, I contacted a mental trainer that was highly recommended by the name of Igor Aldores. So we had a long chat, maybe like an hour and a half, where it was like a therapy for me. And after that, we started working, and I feel like a complete different person after I did his basic program, and we talk regularly, and I train every day with it. Like, I feel like a different person. It did not just help me when I'm training and I'm fighting. It feels like my quality of life is so much better than it was just a couple of months ago.
Well, that's awesome. Just on a human level, that's really great to hear that you're getting so much from it. Like, I would think that would, be tremendously helpful to what you're doing competitively, though. Like, that's another adage in fighting, I guess, like talking about how much of it is actually like a mental kind of pursuit as much as there is the physical component. So that's awesome to hear, man.
Sure, thank you. Definitely. Fight day is like mostly mental. Just mental.
But I mean, you talked about that fight. Is that one you would like to, I guess, run back eventually? Or, like, because you talked about how it wasn't necessarily a representation of your skills overall. Like, is that something that you would like to run back eventually? Or are you not really meaningfully thinking about that one as much?
No, I'm thinking about Grant Neal now, but we'll see what happens in the future. Karl is a very, very talented fighter. He's probably going to do very well, so we'll see where we end up in the rankings later.
Yeah, for sure. And just speaking to, this upcoming fight, like, are you a guy that is generally, getting into a fair bit of tape study with your opponents, or is that more so like the coaches kind of doing that and then they relay the intel to you as you're training?
I do a bit of tape studying, and they do a bit, or they do more. But I do a bit and like check out their style, and like then we come up with how we're gonna approach this fight and stuff like that. So we both, or all of us, do a bit of tape studying.
Well, to that point, like in terms of, I guess, the stylistic attributes that Grant Neal brings to the table, like what do you think he really does well as a mixed martial artist?
Well, he's a hell of an athlete, and he's got a good double leg. He's got good wrestling. I like that he likes to work off his jab hook, and tries to land that right hand. And he's getting better with each fight. So I think Grant Neal will get better and better in his career as it goes. But right now he's got a good jab, and it's the jab and the wrestling that I need to watch out from.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned the rankings earlier. This seems like one that would very much play into, how that rankings hierarchy looks throughout the rest of the year, just with him being in that number 6 spot and you yourself in the top 10 as well. Like, is that something that you're like really focused on here, like getting that sort of, higher ranked kind of spot here? Because it seems like things panned out pretty well for you. I would have thought like when the bout offer came your way, you would have, had a good reaction just because it creates that upward mobility.
I'm trying not to think about the rankings so far. I'm just trying to think about the fights. But of course, it's good for me to fight another ranked opponent. And eventually, I want to be champion someday. And then you have to beat the guys on top of you in the rankings. But I'm focusing on the fight. The rankings, that's secondary.
And just like, I guess, the thoughts on the magnitude of this card, like it seems like a big event just with it being on CBS. Like it seems like MMA hasn't been broadcast on there in a while, and just, the send-off of Fedor, and just seems like a really, deep card to kind of begin the year. Can you kind of talk about those aspects? Like, are those things you find intriguing, or does it add a certain extra level of excitement, or is it kind of, inconsequential in a sense almost?
I'm focusing. I need to do my best. I need to focus on doing my best, because I know if I do my best and I fight to the abilities that I know that I'm capable of, then I will bring a hell of a show to CBS, and I know that a lot of people are going to watch it. And it's Fedor's last fight. Everything kind of has built up to this moment for me. I need to perform at my best, regardless CBS or anything. For me, it's very important now that I do my best and I fight to the best of my abilities.
And I'm kind of wondering, like, if you have a broader idea for like a strength of schedule for this calendar year, like not in a way where you're overlooking this fight per se, but just because you're kind of beginning the year, pretty early with a fight here. Is there a, certain amount of fights you would like to get in this calendar year?
Well, I would at least like to get 3 fights in this year, maybe even 4. I like to be busy. I don't like to sit down for long, but I have my eyes out for a few. I kind of know how I want to progress after I win over Grant Neal.
Like a particular opponent in mind if you get the win?
Well, I've been calling out Julius Anglikas for a while, and after I win over Julius Anglikas, I need to get into the top 5, top 3.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's just really what it is. I feel like if you string together like a couple impressive performances, I feel like you would very much be right there. Like, not even just because you're like ranked within the top 10, but just like your competitive history and like a former, like a victory over the champ and stuff like that. So a lot of ingredients there for sure. Is that a perception you have too? Like if you have a couple like really strong wins, you could get yourself in that title conversation by the end of the year?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's my plan, and that I kind of think I make a strong case for that, especially if I get a couple of wins in a row. And you have to look at the past, the last performance
I'm kind of wondering where you're. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
Oh no, I think there's just a bit of a delay on my end. Sorry about that. I was just going to ask where you're like mostly training ahead of this one, because like the last time we were talking, it seemed like All Star Gym Sweden, Stark Jiu Jitsu Sweden top team, like just some of the spaces you were working at. Is that still the case in this camp?
It's still the case in this camp. I've been working also with a couple of boxers that either won the national championship here in Sweden or they're starting their pro careers. I was also recently in Norway training with my friend Martin Hamlet, who is fighting in PFL, who's a very, very strong wrestler and one of the strongest persons I ever encountered. So I was there now for a couple of days. I just got back home here yesterday, and that's why also I'm resting today and did some physical therapy and stuff like that. So we trained pretty hard over there in Norway.
Yeah, how do you break up that routine there? Like you talk about like the hard training, but also getting in the proper recuperation. Like, do you have a certain, I guess, routine or methodology for like when you really push it with the hard training versus when like you prioritize recuperating? Like, is it just kind of like reading your body more so, or?
Well, it's definitely reading the body, and I think the older you get, the better at it. You know, when you were younger, you can go like, fuck it, we go harder again. But now you have to really, like, you're not 25, 24 anymore. So the body, you have to be smarter, and like more hard work doesn't always turn out better. So no, it's learning, reading the body, like checking the pulse. And you know, if you did two hard sessions the day before, you're gonna be sore today, and like maybe you should just do some light work or rest. Like there's an expression in Sweden, or it's probably in the US and everywhere, but okay, this might sound weird, but the exact translation is like rest is a weapon.
Well, based on the details you laid out, that makes sense. Just showing that that's also an attribute that you can bring to the table, like with any kind of competition too. Just, yeah, if you're not firing on all cylinders, as it were, hard to really show the full body of, skills you have and everything.
Yeah, but definitely. But the mental training, you can do how hard you want and how much you want. Because that part doesn't get overtrained.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to look at it. And yeah, no, I mean, you can always like refine that, and just speaks to like the general martial arts idea too, of like a certain part, like maybe you've worked too much and then it's like you slow down in that regard, but you can work on another area. So cool, you're looking at it like that. And I guess one other thing I kind of wanted to ask about too, just because of the relative proximity to that Bellator versus Rizin event, and just you being a veteran of both of those promotions. Like, did you check out that show? And if so, what were your thoughts on all that?
No, I kind of missed it. It said it's going to air on in Sweden. Bellator airs on Pluto TV here, and it said it's going to air, but then I checked out. It's like, no, it's not going to air here. Oh. So I only seen highlights, but man, it looks badass, man. It's special to fight in Japan. It's just something different.
Just with the cross-promotional partnership there, though, like, could you see yourself going back to Japan to fight again before your career's done? It seems like you would want to.
For me, definitely. But if I'm going to fight in the cross-promotion, I need to become champion. Otherwise, why would Bellator send me? So, yeah, I still want to fight in Japan, but who doesn't want to fight in Japan?
That's just cool to hear from your perspective too, though, because you had obviously some big fights on that circuit and stuff like that. And sometimes with fighters, it's almost like the certain glow of certain things like wears off after a little while, but it still seems like, fighting in Japan is like something that you revere and really still see as like an important kind of thing. So that's fun.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, I definitely gotta get out there and check out a fight someday too, so I understand where you're coming from. But I want to be mindful of your time here. I feel like I'm kind of cutting her close towards the end here.
Don't worry. Yeah. You give me an excuse to not be with the kids. But I think I have another interview in a minute or so.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's been great getting to talk to you. I always like chatting with you before your different fights, Karl, and it's always fun. So, yeah, thanks for coming on again. And, yeah, looking forward to checking out the fight when it goes down for sure. But just as we're wrapping up, I was wondering if maybe there's like a parting thought you might want to add or a shout out, something of that persuasion.
Nah, not really. Man, it's nice to talk to you, Dylan. You're a cool guy.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. I think you're a cool guy, too. I think this is going to be a cool fight, though. Bellator 290, February the 4th. And, yeah, it should be a, very intriguing fight with Grant Neal. Certainly one that'll, paint a picture for how light heavyweight looks in Bellator going forward throughout 2023. So, yeah, to reiterate, thanks for coming on, and you have a good rest of your day, Karl.
Thank you, Dylan. Have a nice weekend.